The day my sister walked back into my life after 10 years of silence, I was frosting cupcakes for Emma's 12th birthday party. My hands were covered in buttercream, my kitchen smelled like vanilla and hope, and I had absolutely no idea that in 48 hours, I'd be sitting across from a lawyer, defending myself against kidnapping charges. I'm Rebecca Turner, but everyone calls me Becca. I'm 35 years old, a graphic designer, and for the last decade, I've been raising 3 children who didn't come from my body, but somehow found their way into every corner of my heart. Their mother, my younger sister Natalie, dropped them on my doorstep one cold February morning and disappeared into a life I knew nothing about. She didn't ask if I was ready. She didn't ask if I could handle it. She just left. And now, after 10 years of birthday parties and scraped knees and midnight fevers and school plays and first days of everything, she was back. And she didn't come back to thank me. She came back to destroy me. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from. And if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed because tomorrow, I've saved something extra special for you. Growing up, Natalie and I were never really close, but we weren't enemies either. We just existed in different orbits. I was the older sister, the one who colored inside the lines and finished her homework before dinner. Natalie was the wild one, the girl who snuck out of windows and came home smelling like bonfire smoke and bad decisions. Our parents, Linda and Robert Turner, lived in a comfortable suburban home in Tacoma, Washington. Dad was an electrician with steady work and steadier habits. Mom kept the books for a local veterinary clinic and made pot roast every Sunday. They were good people, salt of the earth types, but they had a blind spot the size of the Grand Canyon when it came to Natalie. She could do no wrong in their eyes, or maybe they just didn't want to see the wrong she was doing. Every time she messed up, they'd smooth it over. Every time she needed money, they'd open their wallets. And every time I pointed out that maybe, just maybe, they were enabling her, they'd give me that look. The look that said I was being too hard on her, too judgmental, too much like the older sister who didn't understand what it meant to be young and free. I moved to Portland after college, got a decent job as a graphic designer at a small marketing firm, and built a life that felt like mine. I had a cozy 3-bedroom house in a quiet neighborhood with tree-lined streets and neighbors who waved when you checked the mail. I worked hard, saved money, adopted a cat named Pickles, and dated occasionally but never seriously. My life was small and predictable and I loved it. Natalie, on the other hand, bounced from Seattle to Vancouver to wherever the wind took her. She worked serving jobs, bartending gigs, anything that paid cash and didn't require commitment. By the time she was 24, she had a 2-year-old daughter named Emma and was 6 months pregnant with her second child, a boy she'd eventually named Jacob. The father or fathers were never really in the picture. Natalie didn't talk about them and honestly I didn't ask. It wasn't my business. Or at least I didn't think it was. Then came that February morning 10 years ago. I was 25, still half asleep in my pajamas, nursing my first coffee of the day when the doorbell rang. I wasn't expecting anyone. When I opened the door, Natalie stood there with 2 kids clinging to her legs and a duffel bag slung over her shoulder. Emma, barely 2 years old, had a runny nose and clutched a stuffed rabbit that had seen better days. Jacob was a tiny bundle strapped to Natalie's chest, maybe 3 months old, his face red and scrunched like he'd been crying for hours. Natalie looked like she hadn't slept in days. Her hair was greasy, pulled back in a messy bun. Her eyes were hollow, rimmed with dark circles that makeup couldn't hide. She smelled like stale cigarettes in desperation. "I need your help," she said. Not asked. Said. Like it was a fact, like I didn't have a choice. I stood there, coffee mug in hand, my brain scrambling to catch up. "What's going on? Are you okay?" She pushed past me into the house, setting the duffel bag down with a heavy thud. "I just need a few days, Becca. Maybe a week. I've got this opportunity in California, a job thing, and I can't take the kids. Can you watch them?" I looked at the kids. Emma had wandered over to Pickles and was trying to pet him. Jacob was still fussing against Natalie's chest. "A week," I repeated. She nodded, already unstrapping Jacob and handing him to me before I could protest. He was so small, so warm, and he smelled like sour milk and baby lotion. "I'm leaving tonight," Natalie said, moving quickly now like she was afraid I'd change my mind. "I've got everything they need in the bag. Diapers, clothes, formula. Emma eats pretty much anything. Jacob's still on the bottle every 3 hours. I can send you money once I get settled." "Natalie, wait. What kind of job? Where exactly are you going? How do I reach you? She scribbled a phone number on a scrap of paper and shoved it into my hand. I'll call you in a few days. Promise. Thanks, Becca. You're a lifesaver. And then she was gone. Just like that. The door closed, her car pulled away. And I was standing in my living room holding a 3-month-old baby I barely knew, with a toddler exploring my house like it was a new planet. I called the number she gave me 2 days later. Disconnected. I called my parents. They hadn't heard from her either. 1 week turned into 2. 2 weeks turned into a month. A month turned into 6. I kept thinking she'd come back. That this was just Natalie being Natalie, flighty and irresponsible, but ultimately harmless. But she didn't come back. And the kids, they needed someone. So I became that someone. Those first few months were a blur of sleepless nights and steep learning curves. I knew nothing about babies. I'd never changed a diaper in my life. I didn't know the difference between a onesie and a sleeper. I had to Google everything. How to soothe a crying baby. What to do when a toddler won't eat. How to baby-proof a house that was definitely not baby-proofed. My job suffered. I used up all my vacation days, then my sick days, then started working from home as much as my boss would allow. I was exhausted, running on fumes and cold coffee and sheer stubbornness. But something shifted in me during those months. Emma started calling me Auntie Becca, then just Becca. Jacob's first word was BA, which I convinced myself was baby talk for Becca, though it was probably just babbling. I learned their rhythms. Emma liked her toast cut into triangles, not squares. Jacob hated baths but loved splashing in puddles. They were good kids. Sweet kids. And slowly, painfully, I fell completely in love with them. By the time Emma turned 3 and Jacob turned 1, I'd stopped waiting for Natalie to come back. I enrolled Emma in preschool. I took Jacob to his pediatrician appointments. I celebrated their birthdays with homemade cakes and dollar store decorations. My parents helped when they could, but they lived 2.5 hours away, and honestly, they were still holding out hope that Natalie would return. They didn't want me to get too attached. But it was way too late for that. Then came the curveball I never saw coming. 2 years after Natalie left, I got a call from a hospital in Los Angeles. A social worker named James Mitchell was on the line. He told me that Natalie had given birth to a 3rd child, a baby girl, and she'd listed me as the emergency contact. The baby was healthy, but Natalie had left the hospital without her. She'd signed a paper stating she couldn't care for the child and wanted her to go to family. Did I want her? I stood in my kitchen, phone pressed to my ear, my mind reeling. Another baby. A 3rd child. I was barely holding it together with 2. But what was the alternative? Foster care? Splitting up siblings who didn't even know each other yet? I bought a plane ticket that night. Her name was Lily. She was 3 days old, wrapped in a hospital blanket, impossibly tiny. When they placed her in my arms, she opened her eyes and looked right at me, and I knew I couldn't leave her. I brought her home to Portland, and suddenly I was a family of 4. 3 kids under the age of 4. People thought I was crazy. Maybe I was. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. But those kids didn't ask to be born into chaos. They didn't ask for a mother who couldn't stay. And if I didn't step up, who would? I officially filed for guardianship when Emma was 5, Jacob was 3, and Lily was 1. My parents supported the decision, though I could tell it hurt them. Felt like giving up on Natalie. But I wasn't giving up on her. I was choosing her children. There's a difference. The years that followed were hard but beautiful. I learned how to braid hair and tie shoes and sound out words. I learned how to stretch a grocery budget and make a game out of cleaning up toys. I learned patience I didn't know I had and found strength in places I didn't know existed. Emma started elementary school and joined the soccer team. Jacob discovered a love for dinosaurs and could name every species by heart. Lily was my shadow, following me from room to room, always wanting to help. I met Michael 4 years into this new life. He was a middle school teacher, patient and kind, with a laugh that made the whole room feel lighter. He didn't run when I told him about the kids. He showed up to soccer games and helped with science projects and read bedtime stories in funny voices. He fit into our strange little puzzle like he'd always belonged. We weren't married, didn't even live together, but he was part of us. Part of our rhythm. Life wasn't perfect. Money was tight. I worked freelance gigs on top of my full-time job. I skipped vacations and drove a car that was held together by duct tape and prayers. But the kids were happy. They were thriving. Emma was getting straight A's. Jacob had friends who came over for playdates. Lily was obsessed with drawing and covered our fridge with crayon masterpieces. We had movie nights and pancake Sundays and inside jokes that made us laugh until our stomachs hurt. We were a family. Not the kind anyone plans for, but the kind that matters. And for 10 years I didn't hear a single word from Natalie. Not a phone call. Not a text. Not a birthday card. She was a ghost. A story the kids barely remembered. Emma had vague memories of a woman with dark hair who sang off-key. Jacob and Lily didn't remember her at all. When they asked about their mom, I told them the truth in the gentlest way I could. She loved them, but she wasn't able to take care of them. Sometimes adults make really hard choices, and she made the choice to make sure they were safe. They seemed to accept that. Or maybe they just didn't know what else to ask. Then came Emma's 12th birthday. I'd been planning it for weeks. A small party at the house, just a few friends from school, pizza, cupcakes, and a scavenger hunt in the backyard. Emma had been so excited, making lists and changing her mind about decorations every other day. The morning of the party, I was in the kitchen elbow-deep in frosting when my phone buzzed. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something told me to pick up. Hello? Becca? It's me. I froze. That voice. I hadn't heard it in a decade, but I knew it instantly. Natalie. Where are you? I managed to say, my voice barely steady. I'm in Portland. I need to see you. I need to see my kids. My heart was pounding so hard I thought it might crack a rib. The kids were in the living room laughing at something on TV. Michael was setting up tables in the backyard. Everything was perfect, normal, safe. And now this. Now her. We need to talk first, I said. Just you and me. Fine. There's a coffee shop on Hawthorne. Can you meet me in an hour? I looked at the cupcakes half frosted. I looked at the clock. The party started in 4 hours. Hey, I said. 1 hour. I told Michael I had to run an errand and asked him to keep an eye on things. He didn't ask questions, just kissed my forehead and told me to drive safe. The coffee shop was small and crowded. The kind of place with mismatched chairs and local art on the walls. I spotted Natalie immediately. She looked different. Older, polished. Her hair was styled, her clothes expensive looking. She had that glow people get when life is going well. It made my stomach turn. I sat down across from her, my hands folded tightly in my lap. Hi, she said, like we were old friends catching up. Hi, I replied. 10 years, Natalie. 10 years and not a word. She flinched. I know. I'm sorry. I was in a bad place back then. I needed to get my life together. And did you? She nodded. I'm good now. Really good. I've got a business in LA, a condo, a life. I'm stable. That's great, I said, my voice flat. So why are you here? I want my kids back. The words hung in the air like a guillotine. I stared at her, waiting for the punchline, the moment she'd laugh and say she was kidding. But she didn't laugh. She just looked at me with those clear, confident eyes. You can't be serious, I said. I'm their mother, Becca. She leaned forward. I made mistakes, but I've changed. I'm ready now. They don't even know you. Emma barely remembers you. Jacob and Lily have no idea who you are. So we'll reintroduce ourselves. Kids are resilient. My hands were shaking. I wanted to scream. I wanted to flip the table. But I kept my voice low and even. You left them, Natalie. You abandoned them. I've raised them for 10 years. I've been to every doctor's appointment, every parent-teacher conference, every nightmare and every triumph. You don't get to just walk back in and take them. She sat back, her expression hardening. Legally, they're mine. I never gave up my parental rights. And that's when I knew. This wasn't a reunion. This was a battle. And I had no idea how bloody it was about to get. I left that coffee shop feeling like the ground had shifted beneath my feet. My hands were still trembling when I gripped the steering wheel, and I sat in the parking lot for 10 minutes trying to steady my breathing before I could drive home. Natalie's words kept echoing in my head. Legally, they're mine. I never gave up my parental rights. How had I been so naive? How had I not seen this coming? For 10 years, I'd operated under the assumption that her silence meant surrender, That her absence was a form of consent. I'd filed for guardianship, yes, but guardianship isn't adoption. Guardianship can be challenged. Guardianship can be revoked. And now, after a decade of birthday cakes and bedtime stories and wiping away tears, I was facing the very real possibility that everything could be taken away. When I got home, the party was in full swing. Emma's friends were running through the backyard, shrieking with laughter as they searched for clues in the scavenger hunt Michael had set up. Jacob was manning the pizza station, taking his role as official food distributor very seriously. Lily was showing off her new art supplies to anyone who would look, her face lit up with pure joy. Michael caught my eye from across the yard and gave me a questioning look. I forced a smile and shook my head slightly. Later I mouthed. He nodded, but I could see the concern in his eyes. He knew me too well. He knew something was wrong. Emma blew out her candles and made a wish, her face glowing in the soft light of 12 flickering flames. Everyone sang off-key and cheered when she managed to get them all in one breath. She hugged me tight afterward, her skinny arms wrapped around my waist. "Best birthday ever," she whispered. "Thank you, Becca." My throat tightened. I held her a little longer than necessary, breathing in the smell of her strawberry shampoo, memorizing the feeling of her in my arms. What if this was one of our last birthdays together? What if Natalie actually went through with this? What if a judge decided that biology mattered more than a decade of love and sacrifice? That night, after the guests had left and the kids were in bed, I told Michael everything. We sat on the back porch, the remains of the party still scattered across the yard, paper plates tumbling in the evening breeze. He listened without interrupting, his jaw getting tighter with every sentence. When I finished, he was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, "You need a lawyer." Like yesterday. I know I said, my voice small. "I'm scared, Michael. What if she wins? What if they have to go with her? They don't even know her." He took my hand. "We're not going to let that happen. You've been their mother in every way that matters. No judge is going to ignore that." But even as he said it, I could hear the uncertainty underneath. He was trying to be strong for me, but he was scared too. The next morning, I called every family lawyer in Portland. Most couldn't see me for weeks. One, Patricia Wong, had a cancellation and could fit me in that afternoon. I took it. Her office was in a sleek downtown building, all glass and steel. Patricia herself was in her 50s, sharp-eyed and no-nonsense, with silver-streaked hair pulled back in a tight bun. She listened to my story while taking notes on a yellow legal pad, her expression giving nothing away. When I finished, she set down her pen and looked at me directly. "Here's the situation," she said. "Your sister retained her parental rights. That's a significant legal advantage. However, you have 10 years of documented guardianship. You've been the primary caregiver, the stable presence, the one who's made every major decision regarding these children's welfare. That counts for something. But does it count for enough?" I asked. She hesitated. "That depends on a lot of factors. Her current circumstances, her reasons for leaving, her ability to provide a stable home now, and most importantly, what's in the best interest of the children. Courts generally favor reunification with biological parents when possible, but they also prioritize stability and the children's emotional well-being." I felt sick. So she could actually win? "It's possible," Patricia said carefully, "but it's also possible we can fight this and win. I need you to gather every piece of documentation you have. School records, medical records, photographs, emails, text messages from 10 years ago, financial records showing you've paid for everything, testimony from teachers, doctors, neighbors, anyone who can speak to your role in these children's lives. We need to build a comprehensive case that shows you're not just their guardian. You're their parent." I left her office with a thick folder of intake paperwork and a feeling of dread that sat like a stone in my chest. That evening, I started gathering documents. I pulled out boxes from the hall closet, files from my desk drawer, albums from the bookshelf, Emma's first report card, Jacob's vaccination records, Lily's birth certificate with my name listed as the person who brought her home from the hospital, receipts for school clothes and birthday presents and dental appointments, hundreds of photographs documenting 10 years of life, Halloween costumes and Christmas mornings and first days of school, beach trips and backyard barbecues and silly selfies. Every image was proof. Proof that I was there. Proof that I showed up. Proof that I loved them. Michael helped me organize everything into categories, creating a timeline of the past decade. As we worked, the sheer weight of it hit me. 10 years. 3,650 days of being needed, of being present, of being mom in everything but name. And now I had to prove it. I had to take all of this love and sacrifice and translate it into legal language that a judge would understand. Felt impossible. Felt insulting. But it was necessary. 2 days later, Natalie called again. I almost didn't answer, but Patricia had advised me to document every interaction. I hit record on my phone before I picked up. "What do you want, Natalie?" I asked, skipping the pleasantries. "I want to see them," she said. "It's been long enough. You've had time to process. I want to meet my children." "They're not ready," I said. "You can't just walk back into their lives without preparation. They need time to understand who you are. I'm their mother. They'll understand that. You're a stranger to them," I said firmly. "Emma has vague memories of you. Jacob and Lily don't remember you at all. If you actually care about their well-being, you'll let me prepare them properly." There was a pause. "Fine," she said. "But I want to see them this weekend. Supervised. You can be there. We can meet somewhere neutral." I closed my eyes. Patricia had warned me this might happen, and she'd advised me not to refuse reasonable requests. If I appeared to be blocking Natalie's access entirely, it could hurt my case. "Okay," I said slowly. "Saturday afternoon. The park on Belmont. 2 o'clock. I'll bring the kids, but if any of them get upset or uncomfortable, we're leaving." "Fair enough," she said and hung up. I sat there holding the phone, my heart racing. How was I supposed to explain this to them? What was I supposed to say? "Hey kids, remember that mother you don't remember? She's back and wants to take you away from everything you've ever known." Yeah, that would go over well. That night at dinner, I decided to start with the truth, or at least a version of it. I made their favorite meal, homemade mac and cheese with a side of roasted broccoli, that Lily would inevitably refuse to eat. We sat around the table, the 4 of us, like we did every night. Emma was talking about a boy in her class who tried to impress her by doing a backflip off the monkey bars and landed face first in the wood chips. Jacob was building a tower out of his broccoli. Lily was humming to herself and drawing invisible pictures on the tablecloth with her finger. I took a deep breath. "Hey guys, I need to talk to you about something important." They all looked up. Emma's expression immediately shifted to concern. She was old enough now to recognize when adult conversations were coming. "What's wrong?" she asked. "Nothing's wrong exactly," I said carefully. "But I got a phone call from someone you used to know. Your birth mom, Natalie. She's in town and she wants to see you." The silence that followed was deafening. Jacob stopped playing with his food. Lily's humming cut off mid-note. Emma's face went pale. "Our mom?" Jacob said slowly, like he was testing out the word. "Why?" "Because she wants to meet you," I said. "She's been away for a long time. But she's back now and she'd like to spend some time with you." "Do we have to?" Emma asked quietly, and the fear in her voice broke my heart. "I don't want to meet her. I don't even know her." "I know, sweetheart. And I understand that this is confusing and maybe scary. But she's asking, and I think it might be good for you to at least meet her once. You don't have to call her mom. You don't have to hug her if you don't want to. We'll just meet her at the park for a little while and I'll be right there the whole time. What if she tries to take us away?" Emma's eyes filled with tears. "You're not going to let her take us, right?" The question felt like a knife. I want to say no. I wanted to promise her that nothing would change, that they were safe, that I would never let anyone take them. But I couldn't lie to her. "Not about this. I'm going to do everything I can to make sure we stay together," I said, choosing my words carefully. "You 3 are my whole world. But I also want to be honest with you. Your mom has certain rights because she's your biological parent, and there might be some legal stuff we have to figure out. But no matter what happens, I need you to know that I love you more than anything, and I'm going to fight for us." Emma started crying. Jacob looked confused. Lily climbed into my lap and buried her face in my shoulder. I held them all as best I could, feeling like I was trying to keep water from pouring through my fingers. This wasn't supposed to happen. This wasn't how the story was supposed to go. We were supposed to be safe. We were supposed to be permanent. That night I lay awake staring at the ceiling, listening to the sounds of the house settling around me. Down the hall I could hear Lily crying softly. I got up and went to her room, climbing into her tiny bed and pulling her close. What if I don't like her? Lily whispered into the darkness. Then you don't have to like her, I whispered back. You don't owe her anything, baby. But what if she takes us anyway? I didn't have an answer for that. So I just held her tighter and hummed the lullaby I'd been singing to her since she was 3 days old, and eventually she fell asleep. But I didn't. I stayed awake all night, memorizing the weight of her in my arms, the sound of her breathing, the way her hair smelled like the lavender shampoo we bought at the grocery store. Just in case this was practice for letting go. Saturday came too fast. I dressed the kids in comfortable clothes, nothing too fancy, nothing that screamed we're trying too hard. Emma wore her favorite jeans and a hoodie. Jacob insisted on his dinosaur shirt. Lily wanted to wear her tutu over her leggings, and I didn't have the heart to argue. Michael offered to come, but I thought it might be overwhelming. This needed to be just us, at least for the first meeting. The park was busy, full of families enjoying the mild autumn weather. Kids on swings, dogs chasing frisbees, couples walking hand in hand. Normal Saturday things. We found a bench near the playground and I checked my phone. 2 o'clock exactly. Natalie was nothing if not punctual. She appeared a few minutes later, walking across the grass with a confidence that made my stomach churn. She was dressed casually but expensively. Designer jeans and a leather jacket that probably cost more than my monthly mortgage. Her hair was perfect. Her makeup was flawless. She looked like someone from a magazine, someone who had her life completely together. She looked nothing like the desperate, exhausted woman who'd left her children on my doorstep 10 years ago. Emma grabbed my hand. Jacob pressed against my side. Lily was hiding behind my legs. Natalie stopped a few feet away, and for a moment none of us moved. Then she smiled and it was so familiar it hurt. She had the same smile Emma had. The same one I'd seen 1,000 times across breakfast tables and birthday cakes. Hi, she said softly. You've all gotten so big. No one responded. Natalie looked at me, uncertain for the first time. Can I sit? I gestured to the other end of the bench. She sat down, maintaining distance, which I appreciated. She looked at each of the kids in turn, her eyes filling with tears. Emma, you were just a baby last time I saw you. And Jacob, oh my God, you were so tiny. And Lily, I've never even met you properly. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Sorry for what? Emma said. And there was an edge to her voice I'd never heard before. For leaving. For not calling. For not even sending a birthday card. Natalie flinched. You have every right to be angry. I don't expect you to forgive me. I just want a chance to explain, to be part of your lives now. We already have a life, Emma said. We don't need you. Emma, I said gently, but she pulled away from me. No, Becca. She doesn't get to just show up and act like she cares. She left us. She didn't want us. Natalie was crying now, mascara starting to streak down her cheeks. That's not true. I did want you. I just couldn't take care of you. I was a mess. I was broke and scared and I didn't know what I was doing. So I made sure you were with someone who could give you what I couldn't. That's not noble, Emma said. That's just abandoning your kids. Jacob hadn't said a word, but I could feel him shaking against me. Lily was completely hidden now. Her face pressed into the back of my legs. This was a disaster. This was exactly what I'd been afraid of. I think we need to end this for today, I said, standing up. It's too much too fast. Natalie stood too, reaching out as if to touch Emma's arm. Emma jerked away. Don't touch me, she said, and then she ran. Just took off across the park toward the playground, her hoodie flapping behind her. I need to go after her, I told Natalie. This was a mistake. Wait, please, Natalie called, but I was already moving. Jacob and Lily ran with me. We found Emma at the top of the play structure, curled into a ball, sobbing. I climbed up, my too large body barely fitting through the child-sized spaces, and pulled her into my arms. I don't want her, Emma cried. I don't want a mom. I already have you. You are my mom. I've got you, I whispered, rocking her back and forth. I've got you. I'm not going anywhere. But even as I said it, I knew I couldn't promise that. Because in the eyes of the law, Natalie was their mother. And I was just the woman who'd been keeping them warm until she decided to come back. The meeting at the park ended in disaster, and the fallout lasted for days. Emma refused to talk about Natalie, shutting down every time I tried to bring it up. Jacob started having nightmares, waking up in the middle of the night calling for me, terrified that someone was going to take him away. Lily became clingy in a way she hadn't been since she was a toddler, following me from room to room and crying whenever I left her sight, even just to go to the bathroom. The stability we'd built over 10 years was crumbling, and I felt powerless to stop it. Natalie called me 3 times that evening. I didn't answer. She left voicemails, each one more emotional than the last. In the first, she was apologetic, saying she understood things had gone badly and asking for another chance. In the second, she was frustrated, saying I was turning the kids against her. In the third, her voice was cold and measured, and that's the one that scared me. I've been patient, Becca, but you need to understand something. Those are my children. I have rights. If you keep blocking me from seeing them, I'll have no choice but to pursue this legally. I need to see them regularly, and we need to start transitioning them to the idea of living with me. I listened to that message 5 times, each word sinking deeper into my chest like stones. Transitioning them to the idea of living with me. She wasn't talking about visits. She wasn't talking about building a relationship slowly. She was talking about taking them. Completely. Permanently. I forwarded the voicemail to Patricia Wong. She called me back within an hour, which told me everything I needed to know about how serious this was. This changes things, Patricia said. She's making her intentions clear. We need to move quickly. I'm going to file a motion to formalize your guardianship and argue that any change in custody would be detrimental to the children's well-being. But Becca, you need to prepare yourself. This is going to get ugly. How ugly? I asked, though I wasn't sure I wanted to know. She's going to paint you as someone who's kept her children from her, who's poisoned them against her. She's going to argue that she's reformed, that she's stable now, that she deserves a second chance. And the court is going to listen because she's the biological mother. We need to prove that removing the children from your care would cause them significant harm. That means psychological evaluations, testimony from the kids if they're willing, character witnesses, the whole 9 yards. My hands were shaking. The kids are already traumatized from one meeting. You're telling me we have to put them through more? I'm telling you that if we don't, you could lose them entirely, Patricia said gently. I know this isn't fair. I know this isn't what you signed up for. But if you want to keep your family together, we have to fight. And fighting means putting everything on the table. That night, I sat Michael down and told him everything Patricia had said. He listened quietly, his teacher brain already processing and organizing information the way he did when he was planning a difficult lesson. Okay, he said when I finished. What do you need from me? I need you to be honest with me, I said. This is about to get messy and expensive and emotionally exhausting. We're not married. These aren't your kids legally. You could walk away from this and no one would blame you. He looked at me like I'd suggested the earth was flat. Becca, I'm not going anywhere. Those kids are mine in every way that matters, and so are you. We're doing this together. The relief I felt was almost overwhelming. I'd been so afraid of being alone in this, of facing Natalie and the courts and the uncertainty without backup. But Michael was staying. We were a team. Even if the law didn't recognize us as a family, we knew what we were. The next few weeks were a whirlwind of preparation. Patricia filed the necessary motions with the court, and we received a date for the first hearing. It was set for 3 weeks out, which felt simultaneously too soon and too far away. In the meantime, I had to gather testimonies. I reached out to Emma's teacher, Mrs. Davidson, who'd had Emma in her class for 2 years and knew her better than almost anyone outside our home. She agreed to write a letter without hesitation. I've watched Emma thrive under your care. She told me when we met for coffee to discuss what she'd include. She's confident, compassionate, and incredibly well-adjusted. That doesn't happen by accident. That's the result of consistent, loving parenting. Whatever you need from me, you have it. I contacted Dr. Harrison, the pediatrician who'd been seeing all 3 kids since I'd brought them into my care. He'd watched them grow from babies and toddlers into healthy, happy children. He'd seen me at 3 in the morning with a feverish Jacob, had talked me through Emma's anxiety about starting middle school, had celebrated when Lily finally conquered her fear of shots. He agreed to testify about the continuity of care and the importance of maintaining their current living situation. I talked to our neighbors, the Kowalskis, who'd lived next door for 8 years and had watched the kids play in the yard every summer. I talked to Coach Martinez, who'd coached Emma's soccer team and seen me at every single game, rain or shine. I talked to the librarian at our local branch, who knew all 3 kids by name and had helped Jacob develop his love of reading. Every single person agreed to help. Every single person confirmed what I already knew but needed others to say. We were a family. A real family. And tearing us apart would be devastating. But the most difficult conversation was the one I had to have with the kids themselves. Patricia had explained that in cases like this, children old enough to express a preference were often interviewed by a court-appointed evaluator. Emma at 12 would definitely be interviewed. Jacob at 10 might be. Lily at 8 was young enough that her opinion would carry less weight, but she might still be asked questions. I need to prepare you for something, I told them one evening after dinner. We were in the living room, the TV off, everyone sitting close together on the couch. Because your mom wants to be more involved in your lives, there's going to be a court hearing. A judge is going to decide what's best for everyone. What does that mean? Emma asked, and I could hear the fear underneath the question. It means a nice lady or man is probably going to want to talk to you, to ask you some questions about our family and how you feel about things. You'll be honest and you'll tell them what you think. There's no wrong answer. Jacob looked at me with wide eyes. What kind of questions? Things like, are you happy here? Do you feel safe? What do you want to happen? Normal questions like that. And what if we say we want to stay with you? Emma asked. Does that mean we get to? I wish I could promise you that, I said carefully. The truth is, I don't know exactly what the judge will decide. But I do know that your feelings matter, and they'll be taken seriously. What if she makes us go with her? Lily whispered, and the terror in her voice made my heart crack. I pulled her into my lap, breathing in the familiar smell of her hair. I'm going to do everything in my power to keep us together, I promised. Everything. But I need you guys to be brave for me, okay? Can you do that? They nodded, but I could see the fear in all their eyes. That night, for the first time in years, all 3 of them ended up in my bed. We were squished together like sardines, elbows and knees everywhere. But none of us could bear to be apart. I lay there in the darkness, listening to them breathe, trying to memorize everything about this moment. The weight of Lily's head on my shoulder. The way Jacob's hand was wrapped around my arm. The sound of Emma's quiet sniffling as she tried not to cry. This was my family. This was everything that mattered. And I was going to fight like hell to protect it. 2 days before the first hearing, Natalie's lawyer sent over her formal petition. Reading it felt like being punched in the stomach repeatedly. She was arguing that I had intentionally alienated her from her children, that I had refused to facilitate contact, that I had poisoned them against her. She claimed that she had been young and overwhelmed when she left but had since undergone therapy, achieved financial stability, and was now in a position to provide a loving home. She included photographs of her condo in Los Angeles, a spacious 2-bedroom place with a view of the city. She included letters from her therapist and her employer, both attesting to her growth and stability. She included a detailed parenting plan outlining how she would transition the children into her care over a period of 6 months, with the ultimate goal of them living with her full-time in California. California. She wanted to take them to California. Away from their school, their friends, their home. Away from Michael. Away from me. I called Patricia in a panic. She's going to take them across the country. How is that in their best interest? I know, Patricia said. And that's one of our strongest arguments. Uprooting children from the only home they've ever known, from their school and community, from the person who's been their primary caregiver for a decade, that's hugely disruptive. But we have to acknowledge that she has presented a stable living situation. The court is going to weigh her rights as a biological parent very heavily. What are our chances? I asked, even though I was terrified of the answer. Patricia was quiet for a moment. Honestly, it's 50-50. Maybe 60-40 in our favor if the kid's testimony is strong and consistent. But Becca, you need to understand that even if we win this hearing, it might not be over. She could appeal. She could ask for increased visitation. This could drag on for months or even years. The thought of years of legal battles, of uncertainty, of the kids living in fear that they could be taken away at any moment, was almost unbearable. But what choice did I have? Giving up wasn't an option. The night before the hearing, I couldn't sleep. I got up at 2 in the morning and made tea I didn't drink, staring out the kitchen window at the dark street. Michael found me there an hour later. He didn't say anything, just wrapped his arms around me from behind and held me while I cried. "I'm so scared," I whispered. "I know," he said. "Me too. What if I lose them? Then we'll figure it out. We'll appeal. We'll fight harder. We'll do whatever it takes. But Becca, you're not going to lose them. You're their mother. Not because of biology, but because you chose them every single day for 10 years. That means something. It has to mean something." The morning of the hearing, I dressed in the most professional outfit I owned. A navy blue dress and blazer that I usually reserved for client presentations. I made the kids breakfast and tried to act normal, even though my hands were shaking so badly I could barely butter the toast. Emma picked at her food. Jacob ate in silence. Lily asked if she could stay home from school, and I almost said yes before I remembered that keeping their routine normal was important. Michael was taking the day off to go to the courthouse with me. My parents were driving down from Tacoma, even though I told them they didn't need to. "We need to be there," my mom had said on the phone. "Those are our grandchildren and you're our daughter. We're not letting you face this alone." Their support meant everything, especially because I knew this was hard for them too. Natalie was still their daughter, and I knew they were torn between supporting me and hoping that maybe, somehow, Natalie really had changed. The courthouse was downtown. An imposing building with too many stairs and too much marble. Patricia met us in the lobby, looking sharp and confident in a way I definitely didn't feel. "Okay," she said, pulling me aside. "Here's how this is going to go. This is just a preliminary hearing. Both sides will present their basic arguments. The judge will hear from the court-appointed evaluator who's been reviewing the case files. No witnesses today, that comes later if we go to a full trial. The goal today is to maintain the status quo, to keep the kids with you while we continue to build our case." "What if the judge decides they should go with her today?" I asked. "That's unlikely," Patricia said. "Judges don't like to make drastic changes without more information. But I won't lie to you, it's possible. Be prepared for anything." We entered the courtroom, and I saw Natalie for the first time since the park. She was sitting at a table with her lawyer, a sharp-looking man in an expensive suit. She looked nervous, which gave me a tiny bit of satisfaction. She should be nervous. She should be terrified. When she saw me, she looked away quickly, focusing on the papers in front of her. The judge entered, a woman in her 60s with gray hair and a no-nonsense expression. Everyone stood until she sat, and then the hearing began. Natalie's lawyer went first, presenting her case in smooth, practiced language. He talked about Natalie's difficult circumstances 10 years ago, her youth and lack of support. He talked about her journey of self-improvement, her therapy, her stable career. He talked about her rights as a biological mother, and her desire to reunite with her children. He made her sound like a victim who'd been forced to make an impossible choice and who now finally was ready to do the right thing. It made me want to scream. Then it was Patricia's turn. She was calm and methodical, laying out the facts of my guardianship. She talked about the 10 years of stability I provided, the emotional bonds that had been formed, the trauma that would result from removing the children from the only home they'd ever really known. She talked about how Natalie had made no effort to contact the children in a decade, no birthday cards, no phone calls, no child support. She talked about the importance of continuity in a child's life, and the recognized psychological harm of unnecessary disruption. She submitted the letters from teachers and doctors and neighbors, a mountain of documentation proving that these children were thriving under my care. The judge listened to everything with an impassive expression that gave away nothing. Then she turned to the court evaluator, a woman named Dr. Stevens who'd been assigned to review the case. "Dr. Stevens, what's your preliminary assessment?" the judge asked. Dr. Stevens stood and opened a thick file. "Your Honor, I've reviewed extensive documentation from both parties. I've also conducted initial interviews with Ms. Turner, the primary caregiver. Based on my review, the children appear to be well-adjusted, emotionally healthy, and deeply bonded with Ms. Turner. They view her as their primary parental figure. However, I've noted that the biological mother has demonstrated significant life changes and appears genuinely motivated to establish a relationship with her children. My preliminary recommendation would be to maintain the current living arrangement while facilitating supervised visitation to assess the viability of a relationship between the biological mother and the children." The judge nodded, making notes. And in your professional opinion, would an immediate change of custody be advisable? I would advise against it at this time, Your Honor, Dr. Stevens said. Such a change would likely be traumatic and potentially harmful to the children's psychological well-being. However, I believe supervised visitation is appropriate and necessary to fully evaluate all parties' claims and the children's best interests. I felt a rush of relief so powerful it made me dizzy. Not immediate change. That was something. That was huge. But Natalie's lawyer stood up. Your Honor, my client has been denied access to her children for 10 years. Supervised visitation implies she's some kind of danger, which is categorically untrue. We're requesting unsupervised visitation, with a pathway to shared custody within 6 months. The judge held up a hand. I've heard both arguments. Here's my ruling. The children will remain in Miss Rebecca Turner's care pending further evaluation. Miss Natalie Turner will be granted supervised visitation, 2 hours per week, location to be determined by the court evaluator, supervision to be provided by a neutral third party. Both parties will undergo psychological evaluation. The children will be interviewed by Dr. Stevens in an age-appropriate manner. We will reconvene in 6 weeks for a full hearing, at which time I will make a determination about long-term custody arrangements. Court is adjourned. The gavel came down and it was over. For now. I turned to Patricia, who was gathering her papers. That was good, she said quietly. We kept them with you. But this is far from over. Supervised visits mean she's going to have regular contact, which means she has opportunities to bond with them. We need to prepare for the full hearing, and we need those kids ready to talk to Dr. Stevens. I know, I said, though my mind was still reeling. Across the courtroom, Natalie was talking intensely with her lawyer. She looked frustrated, which told me she'd been hoping for more. As we left the courtroom, she called out to me. Becca, wait. I stopped against my better judgment. Michael tensed beside me. Can we talk? Just for a minute? I looked at Patricia, who nodded slightly. Make it quick, I said. Natalie approached, and up close I could see she'd been crying. Her mascara was smudged, her eyes red. I know you hate me, she said. And I don't blame you. But I'm not trying to hurt them. I just want to know my kids. Then you should have thought about that 10 years ago, I said, my voice low and cold. You should have thought about that every birthday you missed, every time they got sick, every time they asked about you. You don't get to walk back in now and pretend like you're some kind of hero for finally deciding to be a parent. I made mistakes, Natalie said, her voice breaking. I was young and stupid and scared. But I'm trying to make it right now. Making it right would be putting them first, I said. Making it right would be thinking about what's best for them, not what makes you feel better about yourself. They're happy. They're stable. They're loved. And you're willing to destroy all of that just so you can play mommy after a decade of not giving a damn. That's not fair, Natalie protested. Life's not fair, I shot back. You taught me that when you left 3 kids on my doorstep and disappeared. Now if you'll excuse me, I need to go pick up my children from school and explain to them why they have to spend time with a woman they don't know and didn't ask for. I turned and walked away, Michael's hand steady on my back, my parents following close behind. Behind me I heard Natalie crying, but I didn't look back. I couldn't afford to feel sorry for her. Not when everything I loved was on the line. The supervised visits started the following week, and they were every bit as awful as I'd feared. The court assigned a social worker named Margaret Chun to oversee the meetings, which took place in a sterile room at a family services building downtown. The room was trying too hard to be cheerful, with bright yellow walls and a bin of donated toys that looked like they'd seen better days. There was a table, some chairs, and a two-way mirror that I knew Dr. Stevens would be watching through sometimes. The first visit, all 3 kids clung to me like I was a life raft in a storm. Emma refused to make eye contact with Natalie. Jacob hid behind my legs. Lily cried the entire time. These heartbreaking sobs that made Margaret look uncomfortable, and Natalie looked devastated. Natalie had brought gifts, which Margaret had approved beforehand. A science kit for Emma, a book about dinosaurs for Jacob, an art set for Lily. The kids took them politely, the way you take something from a stranger at a birthday party, and set them aside without opening them. Natalie tried to make conversation, asking about school and friends and favorite subjects. Emma answered in monosyllables. Jacob said nothing at all. Lily just stared at her like she was an alien. After 2 hours that felt like 2 years, Margaret called time. The kids practically ran to me, and I gathered them up, feeling Natalie's eyes on us as we left. In the car ride home, no one spoke. When we got to the house, Emma went straight to her room and closed the door. Jacob turned on the TV and zoned out in a way that wasn't normal for him. Lily crawled into my lap and stayed there for the rest of the evening. Michael came over after work, bringing pizza that none of us really ate. "How bad was it?" he asked quietly while the kids were in the other room. "Worse than the park," I said. "They're terrified of her. They don't understand why they have to keep seeing her." "What did you tell them?" "That it's what the judge said has to happen, and that I'll be there waiting for them every single time." He pulled me close, and I let myself lean on him for just a minute before I had to pull myself together and go be strong for the kids again. That night, Lily had a nightmare. She woke up screaming that someone was taking her away, that she couldn't find me. I held her while she sobbed, rocking her the way I had when she was a baby, singing the same lullaby I'd sung 1,000 times. "You're safe," I whispered. "You're right here with me. You're safe." But I didn't know if that was true anymore. I didn't know if any of us were safe. The visits continued weekly, and they didn't get easier. Natalie tried different approaches. She tried being fun and energetic, bringing games and activities. She tried being calm and gentle, just sitting and talking quietly. She tried asking them questions about their lives, tried sharing stories about her own childhood. Nothing worked. The kids remained closed off, treating her with the wary politeness you'd give a stranger on a bus. I knew it was hurting her. I could see it in her face every time we left, the way her smile would crumble the moment she thought we couldn't see anymore. Part of me, a small petty part, was glad, but a larger part of me just felt sad. Sad for her, sad for the kids, sad for all of us trapped in this impossible situation. Meanwhile, the psychological evaluations began. I spent 2 hours in Dr. Stevens' office, answering questions about my relationship with the kids, my parenting philosophy, my financial situation, my support system. She asked about my childhood, my relationships, my mental health. She asked how I'd felt when Natalie first left the kids with me, how I'd made the decision to keep them, what my long-term plans had been. I answered everything as honestly as I could, trying not to sound defensive or bitter, trying to just present the facts of 10 years of love and sacrifice. The kids had their sessions too. Emma went first and she came out looking exhausted. Dr. Stevens asked me a lot about Mom, Emma told me that evening. She wanted to know if I remembered her from before, what I thought about her now, if I wanted to live with her. "What did you tell her?" I asked, trying to keep my voice neutral. "I told her the truth," Emma said. "That I don't want to go. That you're my mom, not her. That if they make me go, I'll run away." My heart clenched. "Emma, you can't say things like that." "Yes, I can, because it's true," Emma said fiercely. "I'm not going to pretend I want something I don't. I'm not going to lie just to make her feel better. She's a stranger, Becca. She's a stranger who happens to share my DNA. And I don't care what any judge says. That doesn't make her my mother." Jacob's evaluation was shorter because of his age, but Dr. Stevens told me he'd been very clear about wanting to stay with me. He'd drawn pictures of our family, all 4 kids plus Michael, with big smiles and a house and a son. Natalie wasn't in any of the pictures. Lily's session was the hardest. She was so young and the questions seemed to confuse her. When Dr. Stevens asked if she wanted to get to know her birth mom better, Lily had apparently said, "I already have a mom. Her name is Becca." When asked if she'd like to spend more time with Natalie, she'd said, "Only if Becca comes too. I can't go without Becca." 2 weeks before the final hearing, something shifted. I got a call from Margaret, the social worker who supervised the visits. "Miss Turner, I need to speak with you about something that happened during today's visit." My stomach dropped. "What happened? Are the kids okay?" "The kids are fine," Margaret assured me. "But there was an incident." During the visit, Natalie became frustrated when Emma refused to engage with an activity. She raised her voice, not yelling exactly, but definitely showing anger. Emma shut down completely and Jacob started crying. I had to end the visit early. I felt a surge of protective rage. She yelled at them? Not exactly yelling, but her tone was sharp and impatient. "Look, I understand her frustration. These visits are difficult for everyone. But the children are clearly struggling. And responding with anger isn't helping. I'll be documenting this in my report to the court. Is there anything else I should know?" I asked. Margaret hesitated. Off the record? I think Miss Natalie is realizing this isn't going the way she expected. She came in with this idea that she'd reconnect with her kids, and they'd all be one big happy family. But that's not reality. These children don't know her, and frankly they don't want to. She's pushing too hard and it's backfiring. Will you say that in your report? I will present my observations objectively, Margaret said carefully. But yes, I will note that the children show significant distress during these visits, and that forcing a relationship doesn't appear to be in their best interest at this time. That was the first piece of genuinely good news I'd had in weeks. But I didn't let myself feel hopeful yet. I'd learned that hope could be dangerous. 3 days before the hearing, Natalie called me. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. What do you want, Natalie? Can we meet? She asked. Just the two of us. I need to talk to you about something important. I don't think that's a good idea. Please, Becca. I'm not trying to ambush you or trick you. I just need to talk. Face to face. Against my better judgment, I agreed. We met at the same coffee shop where we'd had our first conversation, the one that had started this whole nightmare. She looked different this time. Tired. Defeated. The polish and confidence from before had cracked. She ordered coffee she didn't drink and stared at the table for a long moment before speaking. This isn't working, she finally said. What isn't working? The visits. The whole thing. They hate me, Becca. My own kids look at me like I'm a monster. I didn't say anything. What did she want me to say? That it wasn't true? That it would get better? I couldn't lie to her, and I wouldn't comfort her. You were right, she continued, her voice breaking. At the courthouse. You were right. I'm doing this for me, not for them. I told myself I wanted to be their mother. That I deserved a second chance, that I could fix everything. But the truth is, I wanted to feel less guilty. I wanted to look at myself in the mirror and see someone who hadn't abandoned her children. But I did abandon them. And no amount of supervised visits or court orders is going to change that. Why are you telling me this? I asked. Because I'm going to drop the custody petition, she said, looking up at me with red-rimmed eyes. I'm not going to fight you anymore. I talked to my lawyer this morning. I'm going to withdraw my claim and sign over full custody to you. I stared at her, hardly daring to believe what I was hearing. You're serious? I'm serious, she said. But I have conditions. Of course she did. I felt my guard go back up. What conditions? I want to stay in their lives, she said. Not as their mother. I know I lost that right. But maybe as their aunt or a family friend or something. I want to send birthday cards and Christmas presents. I want to know how they're doing. Maybe when they're older, if they want to reach out to me, I want that door to be open. I won't push. I won't show up uninvited. But I don't want to be completely erased. I sat back, my mind racing. This was everything I'd wanted. Full custody. No more court battles. No more uncertainty. But could I trust her? What if this was some kind of trick, some legal maneuver I didn't understand? I need to talk to my lawyer, I said slowly. And I need time to think about this. I understand, Natalie said. But Becca, I need you to know something. I'm not doing this because I think you've turned them against me or because I'm giving up. I'm doing this because for the first time in 10 years, I'm actually thinking about what's best for them instead of what's best for me. They need stability. They need you. And me trying to force myself into their lives is only hurting them. She stood up, leaving her untouched coffee on the table. My lawyer will send the papers to your lawyer. I hope someday the kids can forgive me. I hope someday they can understand that leaving them with you was the only good decision I made. And then she walked out, and I sat there alone trying to process what had just happened. I called Patricia immediately. She listened to everything, asked a dozen questions, and then said the words I'd been desperate to hear. If she follows through, this is over. You win. But we need to see those papers before you celebrate. Don't let your guard down until everything is signed and filed with the court. The papers arrived 2 days later. Patricia reviewed them carefully, looking for loopholes or tricks. There weren't any. Natalie was voluntarily terminating her parental rights and agreeing to my full legal adoption of all 3 children. She was asking for no visitation rights, no custody, nothing. The only thing she requested was that I consider allowing minimal contact in the future, but even that was framed as a request, not a requirement. It wasn't legally binding. I could say no and there would be no consequences, It's legitimate, Patricia said, looking up from the papers with something like wonder in her eyes. She's really letting them go. So what happens now? I asked, afraid to believe it was really over. We file these with the court. The judge will review them, likely approve them since it's in the children's best interest. Then we proceed with the adoption. Within a few months, those kids will be yours legally, permanently, in every way that matters. I started crying. I couldn't help it. All the fear and stress and sleepless nights, all the worry that I'd lose them, that everything we'd built would be destroyed, it all came pouring out. Patricia handed me tissues and let me cry, and when I finally pulled myself together, she smiled. You did it, Becca. You kept your family together. Telling the kids was one of the best moments of my life. We sat together in the living room, all of us squeezed onto the couch like we'd been that terrible night when I first told them about Natalie coming back. I have some really good news, I said. Natalie has decided not to fight for custody anymore. You're staying with me. Forever. There was a moment of stunned silence. Then Emma burst into tears, throwing her arms around me. Really? She sobbed. Really, really? Really, really, I confirmed, holding her tight. Jacob and Lily piled on, and we sat there in a heap, crying and laughing and holding each other. No more visits? Lily asked. No more visits, I said. And better than that, I'm going to officially adopt you. All three of you. You'll be Turners legally, officially. If you want to be. I want to be, Emma said immediately. Me too, Jacob added. Lily just nodded, her face buried in my shoulder. Michael came over that evening and we told him the news. He picked up Lily and spun her around until she shrieked with laughter. He high-fived Jacob and hugged Emma. Then he pulled me aside while the kids were distracted and said quietly, So what's next for us? What do you mean? I asked. I mean, he said, taking my hand, I've been waiting for the right time to ask you something. And I didn't want to do it while everything was uncertain, while you were fighting for your family. But now that things are settled, now that you know the kids are yours forever, I need to know. Do you see a future where it's not just you and them? Where it's all of us? Are you asking what I think you're asking? I said, my heart starting to pound. I'm saying that I love you, he said. I love those kids. I want to be part of this family officially. I want to marry you, Becca. Not today, not tomorrow, but someday when you're ready. I just need to know if that's something you want too. I looked at him, this man who'd shown up to soccer games and helped with homework and held me while I cried and never once complained about how complicated my life was. Yes, I said. Yes, I want that. The adoption process took 4 months. There were more evaluations and home visits and paperwork than I'd thought possible. But this time it was different. This time there was no one fighting against us. This time, every step forward felt like a victory instead of a battle. The kids chose their new middle names. Emma chose Grace. Jacob chose Alexander. Lily chose Rose. On the day the adoption was finalized, we all dressed up and went to the courthouse. The same courthouse where I'd fought for them, but this time we were celebrating. Judge Morrison, the same judge who'd overseen the custody case, smiled at us from the bench. This is my favorite part of the job, she said. It's not often I get to see a family formed by choice and love rather than just biology. Miss Turner, you've demonstrated extraordinary commitment to these children. And Emma, Jacob, and Lily, you're very lucky to have someone who loves you so much. She signed the papers and just like that, they were mine. Legally, officially, permanently mine. Emma Grace Turner. Jacob Alexander Turner. Lily Rose Turner. And Rebecca and Turner, their mother. Not their guardian. Not their aunt. Their mother. We took pictures on the courthouse steps, all of us grinning like fools. My parents had driven down for the occasion, and my mom cried through the entire thing. These are my grandchildren, she kept saying to anyone who would listen. My daughter's children. We went out for ice cream afterward, even though it was barely noon. We ate too much and laughed too loud and didn't care who stared. That night, I tucked each of them into bed, kissing their foreheads the way I'd done 1,000 times before. But this time was different. This time no one could take them away. Sweet dreams, Emma Grace, I whispered. Sweet dreams, Mom, she whispered back, and that word, that beautiful, perfect word, made my heart feel too big for my chest. I never heard from Natalie again directly, but true to her word, birthday cards started arriving. Simple cards, nothing elaborate, with short messages. Happy birthday, Emma. I hope you're well. They came for all 3 kids every year on their birthdays and at Christmas. I showed the cards to the kids and let them decide what to do with them. Emma read hers and put them in a box in her closet. Jacob looked at his briefly and then threw them away. Lily was indifferent. Maybe someday they'd want to reach out to her. Maybe someday they'd have questions only she could answer. But that would be their choice in their time. For now they were kids. My kids. And they were happy. 6 months after the adoption, Michael proposed officially, with a ring and everything. He did it at home in our living room with the kids watching. He got down on one knee and asked me to marry him, and then he turned to the kids and asked if it was okay with them if he became their stepdad officially. They tackled him before he even finished the question, all 3 of them shouting yes and laughing and making plans for the wedding before I'd even said yes myself. Which I did, obviously. We got married the following spring in our backyard, with the kids as our wedding party. Emma was my maid of honor. Jacob and Lily were flower girl and ring bearer, though Lily insisted on also scattering petals because she didn't want to miss out. It was small and perfect and everything a wedding should be. A celebration of family, of love, of choosing each other. Now, 2 years later, I look at my life and barely recognize it from the woman I was 10 years ago. That woman was single, childless, living a small, predictable life. This woman has 3 incredible children, a husband who's her partner in every way, a house full of noise and chaos and love. This woman has stretch marks and gray hairs and exhaustion that runs bone deep. This woman also has more joy than she ever thought possible. Emma is 14 now, brilliant and fierce and everything I hoped she'd be. She wants to be a lawyer, she says, so she can help other kids who need someone to fight for them. Jacob is 12 and still obsessed with dinosaurs, but now he wants to be a paleontologist. He reads constantly and can tell you more about the Cretaceous period than most adults know about current events. Lily is 10 and creates art everywhere she goes, turning our house into a gallery of crayon and paint and glitter. People ask me sometimes if I regret it, if I wish I'd had a different life, an easier life, one where I wasn't suddenly responsible for 3 kids before I'd even figured out my own life. The answer is always no. These kids saved me as much as I saved them. They taught me what love really means. Not the easy kind, not the kind that shows up when it's convenient. The kind that shows up at 3 in the morning when someone has a fever. The kind that sacrifices and struggles and pushes through exhaustion because the alternative is unthinkable. The kind that chooses every single day to stay. If you're listening to this and you're in a situation where you're the one holding everything together, where you're the one who showed up when everyone else walked away, I need you to hear this. You're not wrong for wanting recognition. You're not selfish for needing support. You're not alone. Biology doesn't make a family. Love does. Showing up does. Being there for the hard stuff and the boring stuff and the beautiful stuff, that's what makes a family. And if you're the one who walked away, if you're the Natalie in someone else's story, it's not too late to do the right thing. But doing the right thing might mean accepting that you can't undo the past. It might mean stepping back instead of pushing forward. It might mean acknowledging that the best thing you can do for your children is to let them be happy with the people who've been there all along. I think about Natalie sometimes. I wonder if she's happy, if she's at peace with her decision. I hope she is. I don't hate her anymore. I don't forgive her either, not really, but I don't carry that anger around like I used to. She gave me 3 incredible kids even if she didn't mean to. And in the end, she did the right thing by letting them go. That took courage even if it came 10 years too late. My family isn't perfect. We have hard days and arguments and moments where I want to lock myself in the bathroom and cry. But we have each other. We have movie nights and family dinners and inside jokes that make us laugh until we can't breathe. We have traditions we've built and memories we're making. We have love that's stronger than biology, stronger than law, stronger than anything that tried to tear us apart. And every night when I close my eyes, I know that when I wake up, they'll still be here. Emma will be grumpy and need 3 reminders to get out of bed. Jacob will already be reading, flashlight under the covers even though he's not supposed to. Lily will crawl into bed with me, her cold feet finding my warm legs, her sleepy voice asking if it's morning yet. And I'll get up and make breakfast and pack lunches and start another day of this beautiful, chaotic, perfect life. Because I'm not just Becca Turner anymore. I'm Mom. And there's no title in the world I'm more proud of. I thought the story was over. I genuinely believed that once the adoption papers were signed and Natalie faded into the background of our lives, We could finally just be a normal family. For almost 2 years, that's exactly what we were. We had our routines and our rhythms, our good days and our challenging ones, but they were ours. We were building something solid, something that felt permanent. I should have known better than to believe permanence was possible. I should have remembered that Natalie had a talent for showing up at exactly the wrong moment. It was a Tuesday afternoon in late October when everything exploded again. I was working from home, finishing up a logo design for a client while keeping half an eye on the time. The kids would be home from school in about an hour, and I needed to start thinking about dinner. My phone rang and I answered without looking at the caller ID, expecting it to be Michael checking in about evening plans. Instead, a crisp professional voice said, "Miss Rebecca Turner? This is Detective Sarah Booth with the Portland Police Department. I need to speak with you about a serious matter. Can you come down to the station this afternoon?" My first thought was that something had happened to one of the kids. My heart lurched into my throat. "Are my children okay?" I asked, already grabbing my keys. "This isn't about an accident," the detective said carefully. "But it does concern the 3 children in your care. We've received a report that needs to be investigated, and I'd prefer to discuss this in person. Can you be here within the hour?" I said yes, my mind spinning with possibilities. What kind of report? What could possibly require police involvement? I called Michael immediately, my hands shaking as I tried to dial. He answered on the second ring. "Something's happened," I said. "The police want to talk to me about the kids. I don't know what's going on, but can you pick them up from school? I don't want them coming home to an empty house." "Of course," he said, and I could hear him already moving, grabbing his things. "Do you want me to come to the station with you?" "No," I said. "Get the kids. Make sure they're safe. I'll call you as soon as I know what this is about." The drive to the police station felt surreal, like I was moving through water. My mind kept racing through possibilities. Had something happened at school? Had one of the kids gotten hurt? But the detective said it wasn't about an accident. What else could it be? The station was busy, full of people coming and going, officers at desks, phones ringing. Detective Booth met me in the lobby, a tall woman in her 40s with kind eyes that didn't match the serious set of her mouth. She led me to a small interview room, the kind you see on TV shows, with a table and uncomfortable chairs and a mirror I assumed was two-way glass. "Please sit down," she said, gesturing to a chair. "Can I get you water or coffee?" "I just need to know what's going on," I said, remaining standing. "Why am I here? What report are you talking about?" Detective Booth sat down and opened a folder on the table. "This morning, we received a call from a woman identifying herself as Natalie Turner. She claims that you are holding 3 children against their will, children that she says are legally hers. She's alleging kidnapping and parental interference." The room tilted. For a moment I couldn't breathe, couldn't think, couldn't process what I was hearing. Kidnapping? She's accusing me of kidnapping? "Those are her words," Detective Booth said, watching me carefully. "Now, I've already done some preliminary research and I can see that you have legal guardianship and adoption papers for Emma, Jacob, and Lily Turner. But Miss Natalie Turner is claiming those documents were obtained fraudulently, that she never consented to the adoption, and that you've been systematically alienating her from her biological children." "She signed the papers," I said, my voice rising. "She voluntarily terminated her parental rights 2 years ago. She walked away from them 10 years ago and didn't come back until 2 years ago. And when she did, she fought for custody and lost. Then she chose to give them up. Everything was legal. Everything went through the courts. I have documentation of everything." "I'm sure you do," Detective Booth said calmly. "And I'm going to need to see all of it. But you need to understand, when someone makes an allegation like this, we're required to investigate. I need to hear your side of the story, and I need to see proof that these children are where they're supposed to be." "Where they're supposed to be is with me," I said, and I could hear the desperation creeping into my voice. "I've raised them for 10 years. I adopted them legally. Natalie gave up her rights. She can't just change her mind now because she's having regrets. Can you walk me through the timeline?" Detective Booth asked, pulling out a notepad. "Start from the beginning. How did you come to have custody of these children?" So I told her everything. I told her about that February morning 10 years ago when Natalie showed up with 2 kids and a duffel bag. I told her about the weeks that turned into months, about Lily being born and abandoned at a hospital, about filing for guardianship because someone had to. I told her about the custody battle 2 years ago, about the supervised visits, about Natalie's decision to withdraw her petition and sign over her rights. I told her everything, my voice getting steadier as I spoke because this was the truth. This was what actually happened. And I have documents for all of it, I finished. Court orders, adoption papers, emails, text messages, everything. You can verify every single thing I've told you. Detective Booth was taking notes, her expression thoughtful. And you haven't had any contact with Miss Natalie Turner since the adoption was finalized? Only the birthday card she sends, I said. She sends cards to the kids on their birthdays and Christmas. That's it. No phone calls, no visits, nothing. Which the kids can confirm along with my husband, my parents, literally anyone in our lives. Have the children ever expressed a desire to see their biological mother? Detective Booth asked. No, I said firmly. Emma barely remembers her. Jacob and Lily don't remember her at all. When she came back 2 years ago and tried to force a relationship, it traumatized them. That's part of why she agreed to step back. Even she could see she was hurting them. The detective nodded, still writing. I'm going to need copies of all those documents. I'm also going to need to speak with the children with your permission. They're minors, so I can't interview them without parental consent, which you now have legal authority to give or deny. My instinct was to say no, to protect them from this, to shield them from Natalie's poison one more time. But I knew that would look bad. It would look like I had something to hide. You can talk to them, I said. But I want to be present, and I want them to have the option to stop the interview at any time if they're uncomfortable. That's fair, Detective Booth said. She closed her folder and looked at me directly. Miss Turner, I want to be upfront with you. These kinds of allegations are serious, and we have to treat them as such. But from what you've told me and from the preliminary records I've seen, this doesn't look like a kidnapping case. It looks like a custody dispute that was already settled in court. However, I still need to do my due diligence. I need to verify everything, speak to all parties involved, and make sure these children are safe and where they want to be. I understand, I said, though my hands were shaking under the table. How long will this take? That depends on how quickly we can gather information, she said. I'll need those documents from you as soon as possible. I'll need to interview the children, probably tomorrow if that works with your schedule. I'll also need to speak with Miss Natalie Turner to get her full statement and see what evidence she's presenting for her claims. In the meantime, you're free to go. There are no charges being filed at this time. But I need you to stay in the area and remain available. At this time, I repeated, latching onto those words. Does that mean charges could be filed later? If evidence supports the allegations, yes, Detective Booth said. But from where I'm sitting right now, that seems unlikely. This looks more like a case of a biological parent having regrets about a decision she made legally and voluntarily. I left the station feeling like I'd been hit by a truck. My phone had 17 missed calls and twice as many texts. Most were from Michael, increasingly frantic. I called him back immediately. Where are you? Are you okay? What's happening? I'm fine, I said, though I was anything but. I'm coming home. Are the kids there? They're here, he said. They're worried about you. Becca, what the hell is going on? I'll explain everything when I get there, I said. Just keep them calm. Tell them I'm fine and I'll be home in 20 minutes. When I walked through the door, all 3 kids rushed at me. Emma grabbed me first, her eyes wide with fear. Michael said the police wanted to talk to you. Are we in trouble? Did something happen? No one's in trouble, I said, hugging all 3 of them at once. But I need to talk to you guys about something important. We need to have a family meeting. We gathered in the living room, the same place where we'd had so many important conversations over the years. Michael sat beside me, his hand finding mine and squeezing tight. The kids sat across from us on the other couch, 3 worried faces waiting for an explanation. Your birth mom has made some accusations, I began, choosing my words carefully. She's told the police that I took you away from her, that I'm keeping you here against your will. The kids stared at me in shocked silence for a moment. Then Emma exploded. That's insane. She shouted. She left us. She didn't want us. You're the one who kept us, who raised us, who actually wanted us. I know, sweetheart, I said. And the police are going to figure that out. But they have to investigate when someone makes a claim like this. That means a detective is going to want to talk to you probably tomorrow. She's going to ask you questions about your life here, about how you feel, about whether you want to be here. Do we have to talk to her? Jacob asked quietly. Technically, no, I said. I could refuse to let her interview you. But if I do that, it might look like I have something to hide. So I think it's better if you talk to her and tell her the truth. Just tell her about our life, about school, about being happy here. That's all you need to do. What if she tries to make us go with Natalie? Lily asked, her voice small and scared. That's not going to happen, Michael said firmly. Your mom has legal custody. She adopted you. Everything was done properly and legally. This is just Natalie making noise because she's unhappy with the decision she made. But the detective has to check it out to make sure everyone's safe. You are safe, I promise. But I could see the fear in their eyes, the same fear I'd seen 2 years ago when this nightmare first started. We'd worked so hard to build their sense of security, to make them feel like they finally had a permanent home. And now Natalie was ripping that away again. That night, none of us slept well. I could hear the kids moving around in their rooms, restless and anxious. Around 2 in the morning, I found all 3 of them in Emma's room, huddled together in her bed like they used to do when they were smaller and scared of thunderstorms. I squeezed in with them, all of us cramped and uncomfortable, but none of us willing to be apart. The next morning, Detective Booth came to the house. I'd gathered every document I could find, organizing them into chronological order. The original guardianship papers from 8 years ago. Medical records showing I'd taken them to every appointment. School enrollment forms with my name as the guardian. Financial records showing I'd paid for everything. The court documents from the custody battle. Margaret's reports from the supervised visitations. Natalie's signed termination of parental rights. The adoption decree. It was a mountain of paper. A decade of proof that I'd been their mother in every way that mattered. Detective Booth spent an hour going through everything, asking questions, taking notes, photographing certain documents. Then she asked to speak with the kids. We set up in the dining room, which felt less intimidating than a bedroom but more private than the living room. I sat in a chair against the wall, close enough to intervene if needed but far enough away to let them speak freely. Detective Booth started with Emma, who was the oldest and the most articulate. Emma, I need you to tell me about your life here. Do you feel safe in this house? Yes, Emma said without hesitation. This is my home. Becca is my mom. I've lived here for as long as I can remember. Can you tell me about your biological mother, Natalie? Detective Booth asked gently. Do you have memories of her? Emma frowned. I have a few memories from when I was really little. I remember her singing sometimes and I remember her being gone a lot. But mostly I remember Becca. Becca's the one who taught me to read, who came to my school plays, who stayed up with me when I was sick. Becca's the one who showed up. And when Natalie came back 2 years ago, how did that make you feel? It was scary, Emma said. She was like a stranger trying to act like she knew us. She wanted us to call her mom and act like a family, but we didn't know her. She left us. You can't just leave kids and then come back years later and expect them to love you. Do you want to have a relationship with Natalie? Detective Booth asked. No, Emma said firmly. Maybe when I'm older, if I have questions or whatever, I might want to talk to her. But right now, no. I have a mom. I don't need another one. The interview with Jacob was shorter. He was quieter, more reserved, but his answers were just as clear. He didn't remember Natalie at all. Becca was the only mother he'd ever known. He liked his life, loved his school, had friends and hobbies and a family that made him feel safe. The thought of leaving made him cry, and Detective Booth quickly reassured him that nobody was making him go anywhere. Lily's interview was the hardest to watch. She was so young and the questions confused her. When Detective Booth asked if she knew who Natalie was, Lily said, the lady who sends cards sometimes. When asked if she wanted to see Natalie, Lily shook her head vigorously. I want to stay with Becca and Michael and Emma and Jacob. This is my family. After the interviews, Detective Booth spoke with Michael as well, asking him about his role in the family, how long he'd known us, what he'd observed. He told her about the custody battle, about watching the kids struggle during the supervised visits, about Natalie's decision to step back. He told her about our wedding, about becoming a stepfather, about building a life with all of us. When she finally finished, Detective Booth closed her notebook and looked at me. Miss Turner, I've seen and heard enough. This is not a kidnapping case. This is a case of a biological parent who made a legal decision she now regrets. Everything you've shown me supports your account of events. The children are clearly well cared for, happy and bonded with you. They've expressed no desire to leave your custody. So what happens now? I asked, hardly daring to hope. I'm going to file my report stating that the allegations are unfounded, Detective Booth said. I'll recommend that no charges be filed. I still need to speak with Miss Natalie Turner to inform her of my findings, but as far as you're concerned, this investigation is closed. The relief was so intense I almost collapsed. Michael's arm came around me, holding me steady. Thank you, I managed to say. Thank you for being thorough, for listening to the kids, for seeing the truth. I'm sorry you had to go through this, Detective Booth said, and she sounded like she meant it. For what it's worth, it's clear to me that you've done an incredible job with these children. They're lucky to have you. After she left, I gathered the kids and told them it was over. The detective believed them. No one was taking them anywhere. We were safe. Emma cried. Jacob actually smiled for the first time in 2 days. Lily climbed into my lap and didn't move for an hour. But I knew it wasn't really over. Natalie had showed her hand, and I needed to understand why. What had changed? Why now, after 2 years of silence broken only by birthday cards? I got my answer 3 days later when Detective Booth called me back. Miss Turner, I wanted to give you a heads up. I spoke with Natalie Turner and I think you should know what she told me. Okay, I said, bracing myself. She claims that she's been in therapy, and her therapist helped her realize she made a mistake giving up her parental rights. She says she was coerced by you during a vulnerable time, that she felt she had no choice because the kids had been turned against her. She's insisting that the adoption should be invalidated. Is that something that can happen? I asked, my heart sinking. Can she challenge the adoption now? It's extremely difficult to overturn a finalized adoption, especially when the biological parent voluntarily terminated their rights, Detective Booth said. She'd have to prove fraud or coercion, and from everything I've seen, that's not the case. However, she could try to file a civil suit. That's outside of my jurisdiction, but I wanted you to be aware. I thanked her and immediately called Patricia Wong, my lawyer. Patricia listened to everything and then sighed heavily. Becca, I'm not going to sugarcoat this. She can try to sue, but her chances of success are virtually zero. The adoption was legal, properly executed, and she signed the termination papers voluntarily in front of witnesses and a judge. She'd have to prove extreme duress or fraud, and she can't. But that doesn't mean she won't try, and it doesn't mean it won't be expensive and stressful for you to defend. How much would it cost? I asked. Depends on how far she pushes it, Patricia said. But we're talking potentially tens of thousands of dollars. And even if we win, which we would, you can't recoup those costs unless she has significant assets, which I'm guessing she doesn't. So what do I do? I asked, feeling the weight of it settling on my shoulders again. Do we have any options that don't involve another court battle? We could try mediation, Patricia suggested. Get everyone in a room with a neutral third party, and see if we can reach some kind of agreement that satisfies her emotional needs without compromising your legal rights. Maybe she doesn't really want to upend the kids' lives. Maybe she just wants to feel like she has some connection to them. Would you be willing to consider allowing her limited supervised contact? I thought about it. The kids would hate it. Emma would be furious. Jacob would shut down. Lily would be terrified. But if it meant avoiding another legal battle, if it meant protecting our peace and our savings, maybe it was worth considering. I need to talk to the kids, I said. And to Michael. This affects all of us. Whatever we decide together. That evening we had another family meeting. I explained the situation as gently as I could. Natalie might try to take us back to court. It would be expensive and stressful, and even though we'd almost certainly win, it would disrupt our lives for months. Or we could consider meeting with her and seeing if there's some kind of arrangement we could live with. Absolutely not, Emma said immediately. She doesn't get to keep doing this to us. She doesn't get to show up whenever she feels like it and turn our lives upside down. I agree with Emma, Jacob said quietly. Every time she comes back, everything gets bad. Why can't she just leave us alone? Because she's struggling with guilt, Michael said. That doesn't make what she's doing okay, but it might help you understand why she keeps doing this. She gave up her kids, and that's something she's going to have to live with forever. Some people can't handle that. They keep trying to fix it even when the thing they're trying to fix can't be fixed. So we're supposed to feel sorry for her? Emma challenged. After everything she's put us through? No, Michael said. You don't have to feel sorry for her. But maybe we can find a way to give her something small that won't hurt you but might help her move on. What do you mean? Lily asked. Maybe we could agree to see her once a year, Michael suggested, looking at me for approval. Not visits like before. More like she sends a letter and we send one back with updates. Or we meet for lunch once a year in a public place with everyone there. Something small enough that it doesn't disrupt your lives, but big enough that she feels like she hasn't lost you completely. The kids were quiet, considering. Would we have to hug her? Jacob asked. Only if you want to, I said. Would we have to call her Mom? Emma asked. Absolutely not, I said firmly. You'd call her Natalie if you called her anything at all. Can we say no if we hate it? Lily asked. Yes, I promised. If we try it and it's awful, we stop. Your well-being comes first, always. After a long silence, Emma spoke. 1 letter a year. That's it. No visits, no phone calls. We send a Christmas card with a basic update, and she can send one back. But if she tries to push for more, if she shows up at our school or our house or anywhere she's not supposed to be, we're done. I can live with that, Jacob said. Me too, Lily agreed. I looked at Michael, who nodded. Then that's what we'll propose, I said. 1 letter exchange per year. Nothing more unless the kids decide they want more when they're older. Patricia set up a mediation session for the following week. It was held at her office, with a professional mediator present. Natalie showed up looking tired and older than I remembered. We sat across a table from each other, the mediator between us. The mediator explained the ground rules. Everyone would have a chance to speak without interruption. The goal was to find a solution that respected everyone's needs and rights. Natalie would go first. I want my children to know I love them, Natalie began, her voice shaking. I made terrible mistakes and I've had to live with those mistakes every day. But they're still my children, and I should have some right to know them, to be part of their lives. They're not your children anymore, I said when it was my turn. You signed away your rights voluntarily. You chose to walk away twice. The first time when you left them on my doorstep, and the second time when you couldn't handle the reality of building a relationship with them. I've raised them. I've loved them. I've been there for every moment of their lives that mattered. You don't get to swoop in now and claim them just because your therapist helped you work through your guilt. The mediator held up a hand. Let's focus on finding a solution rather than assigning blame. Miss Natalie, what specifically are you hoping for? I want to see them, Natalie said. Even if it's just a few times a year. I want to know how they're doing, what they're interested in, who they're becoming. The kids have proposed a compromise, I said. They're willing to exchange letters once a year. A Christmas card from us with a brief update, and you can send one back. But no visits, no phone calls, and no attempts to contact them outside of this agreed arrangement. That's it? Natalie said, looking devastated. 1 letter a year? That's what they're comfortable with, I said. And honestly, it's more than they want to give. They're doing this to try to find peace, to stop living in fear that you're going to keep coming back and disrupting their lives. If you really love them, you'll accept this and respect their boundaries. What happens when they're older? Natalie asked. What if they want to reach out to me then? Then that's their choice, I said. When they're adults, they can decide what kind of relationship they want with you, if any. But until then, this is the offer. Take it or leave it. Natalie looked at the mediator, then back at me. If I don't take it? If you don't take it, we'll see you in court, and you'll lose, Patricia said bluntly. The adoption is ironclad. You signed the papers voluntarily. You have no legal leg to stand on. All you'll accomplish is wasting everyone's time and money, and making the children resent you even more than they already do. This is the best offer you're going to get. Natalie sat in silence for a long moment. Then she nodded. Okay, 1 letter a year. But I want you to tell them something for me. I want them to know that I'm sorry, that I've always loved them, even when I couldn't show it, that giving them to you was the hardest thing I ever did, but also the rightest thing. I'll tell them, I said. Though I don't know if it will make a difference. We signed an agreement that day, legally binding, stating the terms of our arrangement. 1 letter exchange per year, sent through Patricia's office so Natalie wouldn't have our home address. No other contact unless initiated by the children themselves. Violation of the agreement would result in a restraining order. When I told the kids, there was no celebration. Just relief. It's really over this time? Emma asked. It's really over, I confirmed. She signed an agreement. If she breaks it, we can have her arrested. Good, Emma said. I know she's your biological mother, I said carefully. And I know this is complicated. If you ever want to talk about her, or ask questions, or even change your mind about the letters, we can do that. But I never want you to feel obligated to her. You don't owe her anything. I know, Emma said. And I don't want to talk about her anymore. I just want to go back to being normal. So that's what we did. We went back to normal, or as normal as we could be. The kids went to school and their activities. Michael and I went to work. We had family dinners and movie nights. Life continued. Christmas came and we sent our first letter to Natalie. It was brief and factual. Emma was doing well in school and had joined the debate team. Jacob had won a science fair. Lily was taking art classes. We included a single family photo, all 5 of us smiling on our front porch. No personal details, no intimate moments, just proof that they existed and were happy. Natalie's letter came back in January. It was 2 pages long, telling us about her life in Los Angeles, her work, her apartment. She thanked us for the update and said seeing their faces made her both happy and heartbroken. She said she understood why they couldn't forgive her, but she hoped someday they might. She said she'd respect the boundaries and wouldn't push for more. The kids read it together. Emma put it in her memory box without comment. Jacob shrugged and went back to his book. Lily asked if we had to keep doing this, and I told her yes, at least for now, but it was only once a year. She could handle once a year. And we did. Every Christmas we sent a letter. Every January one came back. The exchange became routine, just another part of our year, like dentist appointments or spring cleaning. Not something we looked forward to, but not something that caused panic anymore either. Years passed. Emma graduated middle school and started high school. Jacob developed a passion for robotics. Lily's artwork got good enough that we framed pieces and hung them throughout the house. Michael and I celebrated our 5th wedding anniversary. My parents became regular fixtures in our lives, showing up for birthdays and holidays, fully embracing their role as grandparents. We built a life that was rich and full and completely ours. And slowly, gradually, the shadow of Natalie faded. She became a footnote in our story rather than a defining chapter. She was the woman who'd given birth to them but hadn't raised them. The person they sent a letter to once a year out of obligation rather than desire. She was part of their past, but she wasn't part of their future. Now, as I sit here reflecting on everything we've been through, I think about how different things could have been. If Natalie had never come back, would we have wondered? Would the kids have sought her out on their own when they got older? Maybe, but maybe not. Because the truth is, they never felt like they were missing something. They had everything they needed right here. Sometimes people ask me if I'm angry that I lost my 20s to raising kids that weren't mine. If I resent the sacrifice. And honestly, no. Those kids gave me purpose I didn't know I was missing. They taught me what love really means. Not the easy kind you see in movies, but the hard kind that wakes up at 3 in the morning for a fever and shows up to every school play even when you're exhausted. The kind that fights court battles and has difficult conversations and never, ever gives up. They made me a mother, and there's no greater gift than that. To anyone listening who's in a similar situation, who's raising kids that didn't come from them, who's fighting for a family that doesn't look traditional, I want you to know something. You're not less of a parent because of biology. You're not a placeholder or a substitute. You're the real deal. You're the one who shows up. You're the one who stays. And that matters more than DNA ever could. And to the Natalies out there, the ones who walked away and now want to come back, I'll say this. I understand that guilt is heavy. I understand that regret is painful. But you need to ask yourself if you're coming back for them or for you. Because if it's for you, if you're trying to ease your own conscience at the expense of their stability, then the kindest thing you can do is stay away. Let them be happy. Let them heal. And maybe when they're ready, they'll come find you. But that has to be their choice on their timeline, not yours. Our story doesn't have a neat bow on it. Life isn't that simple. There are still hard days when the kids ask questions I can't answer. There are still moments when I worry about whether I'm doing enough, being enough, giving them everything they need. But every night when I tuck them in, when I see their faces relaxed in sleep, when I hear them laugh at the dinner table, I know we're doing okay. More than okay. We're thriving. Because family isn't about who gave birth to you. It's about who shows up for you day after day, year after year. It's about who fights for you when things get hard. It's about who chooses you over and over again no matter what. Emma is 17 now, looking at colleges and talking about her future. Jacob is 15 and building robots that occasionally work. Lily is 13 and has filled entire sketchbooks with her art. They're becoming incredible humans and I get to watch it happen. I get to be part of their story. And that's everything. So here's to the families we choose. Here's to the parents who step up when biology steps out. Here's to the kids who learn that love is stronger than blood. And here's to second chances, not for the people who left but for the ones who stayed. Because we're the ones who earned them. The year Emma turned 18 changed everything in ways I never anticipated. She was a senior in high school, brilliant and confident, with acceptance letters from 3 universities sitting on the kitchen counter. She'd grown into this remarkable young woman who spoke her mind and knew exactly who she was. One evening in early March, she came to me with something I'd been half expecting but still wasn't prepared for. She found me in my home office, finishing up some design work for a client. "I need to talk to you about something," she said, closing the door behind her. I saved my work and turned to face her, noting the serious expression on her face. "What's on your mind?" "I'm 18 now," she began. "Legally an adult. And I've been thinking about Natalie." My stomach tightened but I kept my face neutral. "Okay, what about her?" "I want to meet her," Emma said. "Not because I forgive her or because I suddenly want a relationship. But because I have questions that only she can answer. Questions about my early childhood, about my father, about why she made the choices she made. And I feel like I need those answers before I go to college and start my adult life." I nodded slowly, processing. "That makes sense. Have you told Jacob and Lily?" "Not yet," Emma said. "I wanted to talk to you first. I know this might be hard for you, and I don't want you to think it means I love you any less, or that you're not my real mom. You are my mom. You're the only mom that matters. But Natalie is part of my story, and I need to understand that part before I can really move forward." I stood up and hugged her tight, feeling the familiar surge of protective love mixed with the ache of knowing she was growing up and away from me. Exactly as she should. "You don't need my permission," I said. "You're an adult now. But I appreciate you talking to me about it first. Do you want me to facilitate the meeting? Would you like me to be there?" "I think I need to do this alone," Emma said. "Just her and me, somewhere neutral. Maybe that same coffee shop where you guys used to meet." "I'll let Patricia know," I said. "She can coordinate it through her office so Natalie doesn't get your phone number or any personal information unless you decide to give it to her." "Thank you," Emma said. "And Becca? Thank you for understanding. Thank you for not making this weird or trying to talk me out of it." "Of course," I said, even though part of me wanted to do exactly that. Part of me wanted to keep her safe from Natalie forever, to protect her from potential hurt or disappointment. But she wasn't a child anymore. She had the right to make her own choices, even ones that scared me. The meeting was scheduled for the following Saturday. Emma was nervous all week, changing her outfit 3 times that morning before finally settling on jeans and a sweater. She wanted to look put together but not like she was trying too hard. Michael drove her to the coffee shop because she was too anxious to drive herself. "I'll be parked across the street," he told her. "You won't see me, but I'll be there. If you need me, just text." She nodded and got out of the car, squaring her shoulders before walking inside. Michael called me immediately. She went in. "She looks terrified but determined. How are you holding up?" "I'm a mess," I admitted. "I'm pretending to clean the kitchen, but really I'm just moving things around and checking my phone every 30 seconds. "She's going to be fine," Michael said. "She's smart and strong and she knows who she is. Natalie can't change that." "I know," I said. "But I'm still her mom. I'm always going to worry." An hour and a half later, Emma came home. She looked emotionally exhausted but not devastated, which I took as a good sign. "How did it go?" I asked, trying to sound casual while my heart hammered in my chest. "It was weird," Emma said, dropping onto the couch. "Really weird. But also kind of helpful." She told me about it in fragments, processing as she spoke. Natalie had cried, of course, but Emma had remained composed. She'd asked her questions directly and Natalie had answered them. She'd learned about her biological father, a man named David who Natalie had dated briefly when Emma was a baby. He'd wanted nothing to do with fatherhood and had disappeared before Emma turned 1. She'd learned about Jacob's father, a different man entirely, who'd been similarly uninvolved. And Lily's father was someone Natalie had met during one of her darkest periods, a relationship that had lasted mere weeks. Did she tell you why she left us with me? I asked. She said she was drowning, Emma said. That she couldn't handle being a mother, couldn't handle the responsibility and the constant need. She said she thought about hurting herself, about hurting us. She said leaving us with you was the only way she could keep us safe. I hadn't known that. In 10 years, Natalie had never mentioned being suicidal. It reframed some things, made her actions slightly more understandable, though no less hurtful. How do you feel about all of that? I asked Emma carefully. I don't know, Emma admitted. I think I understand her better now. I don't forgive her, and I don't want her to be my mom. But I see her more as a person who made impossible choices in impossible circumstances, rather than just a villain who abandoned her kids. She's broken, Becca. Really broken. And I think she always has been. Are you going to see her again? Maybe, Emma said. Not regularly. But maybe once before I leave for college. I want Jacob and Lily to have the chance to talk to her too if they want. When they're ready. Over the next few months, Jacob did decide he wanted to meet Natalie. His meeting was shorter, less emotional, more matter-of-fact. He asked his questions, got his answers, and left feeling like he'd closed a chapter he hadn't realized was still open. Lily at 13 wasn't ready. Maybe someday, she said. But not now. I don't need to know her to know who I am. And that was okay too. The graduation ceremony in June was everything I'd hoped it would be. Emma walked across that stage in her cap and gown, and I cried like a baby. Michael held my hand and cried too. My parents were there, cheering loudly when her name was called. Jacob and Lily hooped and hollered from their seats. This was our girl, the one I'd taken in as a frightened 2-year-old, now ready to take on the world. At the celebration dinner afterward, Emma raised her glass of sparkling cider. I want to make a toast, she said. To Becca, who took in 3 kids she didn't plan for and loved us like we were always meant to be hers. You gave me everything. A home, a family, stability, love. You taught me what it means to show up for people, to fight for what matters, to never give up. I wouldn't be going to college in the fall if it weren't for you. I wouldn't be who I am if it weren't for you. So thank you, Mom, for everything. I was crying too hard to respond properly, so I just nodded and hugged her while everyone clapped. Later that night, after the guests had left and the kids were in bed, Michael and I sat on the back porch. You did it, he said. You got her to adulthood, and look at how incredible she turned out. We did it, I corrected. You've been just as much a parent to them as I have. He smiled. Remember when you thought this was temporary? When you thought Natalie would come back in a few weeks and take them? I remember thinking I had no idea what I was doing, I said. I remember being terrified every single day that I was screwing them up. But you didn't, Michael said. You loved them, and that was enough. Love isn't always enough, I said. But in this case it was. Love plus stubbornness plus a complete inability to give up on them even when things got impossible. That too, Michael agreed. He pulled me close, and we sat in comfortable silence, listening to the sounds of the neighborhood settling in for the night. Emma left for college in August. Watching her drive away with her car packed full of everything she owned was one of the hardest things I'd ever done. The house felt too quiet without her. Jacob stepped naturally into the role of oldest, becoming more responsible and mature almost overnight. Lily missed Emma terribly, FaceTiming her constantly until Emma gently suggested maybe once a week would be better. Life adjusted the way it always does. We found a new normal, different from before but still good, still us. Emma thrived at university. She called home regularly, sharing stories about her classes and her roommate and the campus activism group she joined. She was studying political science and still talking about law school. She was becoming exactly who she was meant to be. Then in her sophomore year, something unexpected happened. Emma called me one Tuesday evening, and I could tell immediately something was different in her voice. I have something to tell you, and I need you to not freak out. That's never a good way to start a conversation, I said, my anxiety already rising. Is everything okay? Are you safe? I'm fine, Emma assured me. But I've been seeing a therapist here on campus working through some stuff about my childhood and my identity. And through that process I decided I wanted to have a relationship with Natalie. Not a mother-daughter relationship, but something. So we've been talking. Regular phone calls, video chats. She's been really respectful of boundaries and hasn't pushed for more than I'm comfortable with. My first instinct was hurt. Why hadn't Emma told me sooner? Why had she kept this secret? But I pushed those feelings down. This wasn't about me. Emma, you're an adult, I said carefully. You get to decide who you have relationships with. You don't need my permission or approval. But can I ask why you didn't tell me? Because I was afraid you'd be hurt, Emma admitted. And I didn't want you to think it meant anything about how I feel about you. You're still my mom. That hasn't changed and never will. But Natalie is part of my genetic makeup, my medical history, my origin story. Having some kind of connection with her helps me feel more complete. Does that make sense? Does, I said, and I meant it. Even though it stung a little, I understood. I'm glad you're doing what's right for you. That's all I've ever wanted. There's something else, Emma said. Natalie asked if she could come to my graduation when I finish undergrad. She knows she wouldn't sit with the family or be included in celebrations. She just wants to be there to see me walk across the stage. Would you be okay with that? I took a deep breath. If that's what you want, then yes. I'm okay with it. But Emma, I need you to be realistic. She's let you down before. She might let you down again. I know, Emma said. My therapist and I have talked about that a lot. I'm going into this with open eyes. I'm not expecting her to suddenly be a perfect mother. I'm just getting to know her as a person, flaws and all. That conversation marked the beginning of a new chapter. Emma maintained her relationship with Natalie, always keeping appropriate boundaries, never letting it interfere with her life or her relationship with us. Jacob, hearing about this, decided he wanted occasional contact too. Nothing intense, just periodic messages letting Natalie know he was alive and doing well. Lily remained uninterested, and that was fine. Everyone got to make their own choice. As for me, I had to learn to let go of the hurt and the fear. I had to trust that I'd raised these kids well enough that they could navigate complicated relationships without losing themselves. And they proved me right. They stayed grounded, healthy, happy. They knew who they were and where they came from, both biologically and emotionally. Now, as I look back on 16 years of raising these three incredible humans, I see the whole picture. The terrified woman who opened her door to find two babies and a desperate sister. The years of sacrifice and struggle and showing up every single day. The court battles and the heartbreak and the moments of pure joy. The graduations and milestones and ordinary Tuesday evenings that made up a life. Was it what I planned? No. Would I change it? Not for anything. Because these kids, these three people who came into my life by accident and stayed by choice, they're my greatest accomplishment. Not the career I built or the house I bought or anything else. Them. The humans they've become. And knowing I had a hand in that, knowing I helped shape them into kind, strong, resilient people, that's everything. So to anyone out there facing an unexpected family, an instant parenthood you didn't plan for, I'll leave you with this. It's going to be hard. There will be days you want to quit. Days you don't think you can do it. But love them anyway. Show up anyway. Fight for them anyway. Because in the end, family isn't about biology or planning or perfect circumstances. It's about choosing each other, day after day, and building something beautiful out of the chaos. And that's exactly what we did. Up next, you've got two more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out.